Welcome to Interfaith Views and Issues, a program designed towards establishing tolerance and better understanding among different faiths and cultures. I am your host, Shafayat Mohammed, and with me in the studio today is Sister Lynthia. Welcome to the show, Sister Lynthia.
Shukran.
It is a pleasure to have you with us, and I would first of all like you to let our viewers know a little bit about your profession and about your occupation. Sometimes you may have a different profession and may have a different occupation. So you let us know.
Okay, my profession and my occupation are basically the same.
Good.
I'm a registered nurse. I work in Miami at a well-known organization or institution known as the Jackson Health Plan. I've been there for about 22 years.
Jackson Hospital?
Yes, it's what is known as the health system also, Jackson Health System.
Okay.
I think it changed after they had acquired several other institutes, like the Jackson South and North.
And Jackson is very famous.
Very famous today.
Jackson is internationally famous.
Internationally, yes.
Whenever you hear people having a problem in the Caribbean or many parts of the world, you hear them flying down to Jackson and Miami.
That's correct.
Good. So you're very fortunate to be working at Jackson.
Gained a lot of experience there, and I have a lot I can share. So I'm preparing to be a nurse educator. So I'm seeking my master's in that field, and I would like to share all my information to future nurses.
So soon you will stop practice?
Soon I'll stop probably the clinical setting, the bedside setting, and go into faculty in a university.
Good, good, good. That's interesting. Yeah. So how many years now have you been with Jackson?
22.
22 years?
22 years with Jackson, but I've been a nurse for 32 years.
Good.
I worked in New York for the first part of my nursing career. In fact, my generic program was I started nursing in New York City.
So were you born in New York?
No, I was born in Aruba.
Aruba?
Aruba, yes.
Wow, and interesting. I never thought about it. I would not have even imagined it.
Yes, I have quite a colorful, let's say, cultural background. I was born in Aruba. My parents are from Grenada, and I lived in Grenada. I went to Grenada about 10 years old, so I did my elementary schooling in Grenada and high school, and then I relocated to New York, where I went to university, and I studied nursing, you know. But in between, before that, like I said, I had a colorful culture. I was an airline stewardess at one point for 1 year.
Interesting. What airline?
It was Liat.
Liat,
yes.
Good, good.
I did that for a year because it was very adventurous. I liked traveling. And then I went to New York and studied nursing.
So how was your flying experience?
Interesting.
I know flying can be very interesting.
It's very interesting. It's very adventurous. We did mainly the islands at the time. You know, anything from Trinidad up to like the Virgin Islands. You know.
Also, have you been to Trinidad?
Oh yeah, I have family in Trinidad.
Small world.
Yeah, I do have family in Trinidad.
Good.
But in fact, I said most Trinidadians come from Grenada, or they have backgrounds, you know, family in Grenada. So, yeah, I do have family in Trinidad, and I visited Trinidad.
Good, good. So do you like Trinidad?
I love all the islands. I think they're basically similar.
Well, the mere fact you said you love all the islands, it means do not give preference to Trinidad over the other islands.
No, I would not give preference. I think, you know, as somebody who loves culture, you respect each culture, and each one is unique. So you admire each one in a sense. So you don't want to say, well, this one is better than the other. They're unique. You know, it's like individuals, but it's unique.
All right, so that's nice. And how many years you stayed in Aruba after being born in Aruba?
No, I left Aruba when I was 10 years old. I visited maybe around 16 years old. I visited. That was the last time I visited Aruba. Yes.
Nice, really colorful. Good
Very
background,
colorful,
especially in the Caribbean.
Yeah, and this helps me to adjust with other cultures, you know, understanding, you know, cultures, and because of my background, so it helps. You know.
All right, and where did you work in New York?
New York, I worked at a hospital called Brookdale Medical Center. That's where I did most of my initial nursing experience, and then I came to Florida. I went to Jackson.
Good. Now, of course, my next question will be, what are some of your hobbies if you have been that person of such great experience in different cultural backgrounds? What are your hobbies, if you have any, if I would want to say that?
Oh, no, I did have some hobbies. When I was much younger, not that I'm old yet, I loved hiking. I love traveling. I love meeting people, understanding people, and reading is a passion of mine. I love reading and I love writing, you know, and I intend sometime, maybe in the next 2 years, to write a book.
On what?
Probably be based on my, maybe most likely on my experience as a nurse, and somewhat collaborated with my experience or my spiritual experience, my turning point in my life. You know, I was a Christian before I reverted to the Muslim faith.
And what year was that?
That was 2 years ago. I reverted, and I thought I was, well, I thought I had my fate. You know, I was satisfied with that fate, but somehow 2 years before I had, like, I was still in search of something, and I wasn't sure what it was. I was restless. Interesting. You know, and I knew something spiritually was going on. But
so what sect in Christianity?
Actually,
I mean, Presbyterian, Pentecostal,
no, it was just, I wouldn't say it's Presbyterian, it's generally Christianity, non-denominational, you know, believed in the Holy Spirit and the rebirth of, of the coming of Christ, and so that's what it was basically about. But I was happy in it until, like I said, I was being tormented. I was searching for something and I wasn't sure what it was. And I'll tell you, reverting to the Muslim faith was the last thing I thought I'd do.
Truly?
Really, yeah, truly. I had a lot of Muslim friends from school, at work. It's a faith I
So just to get you on that point, I mean, for the benefit of our viewers, I've seen that you said that reverting to Islam or coming to the fold of Islam would have been the last thing you thought you would have done.
I know.
Why it would have been the last thing? I mean, now you're a Muslim, so now you're going to tell us about being Muslim in Islam. But I want to know, what were those things that would have prevented you or made you think that Islam would be the last thing? I like that because I want our audience to know what we should have and what and where we make mistakes and where and what we need to highlight non-Muslims or enlighten non-Muslims on about Islam, so they will not think that Islam should be their last choice. And you got to help us with that.
Okay, I'll help you with that. It's not that it's negative. It's not negatively said in that way.
No, from an educational point of view.
But it's just that I didn't know what I was searching for, and I would not have thought that I would go to Islam. I would not have done it independently or spontaneously, so to speak. But it was a spiritual phenomenon. if any of my friends from work who are Muslims have said to me, "Oh, let's go to a meeting or the Mahajid or something," I said, "Oh no, I don't want to go." Not that I would not have been interested at the time, and it's just that it's just strange how everything happened.
No,
I'm getting to the point because I'm trying to say. As I look back now, I realized that it had to take a special person, somebody I knew and I trusted.
Oh, okay.
To tell me about Islam. And it was funny, I was coming from church that morning and I was fighting that spiritual battle, still going to church, and I said, I don't know what's going on, but I'm keeping on this track and not leaving. And then I got a call from a childhood friend who is a Muslim. Like I said, and I said, "Oh, how did you get my number? This is like almost 20, 30 years, I think."
Right.
And I was from a teacher that we both knew. And so my childhood friend started talking about, Islam. And I said, it's so funny that I've been having the spiritual battles, and you're talking to me about Islam. And just before that, I had prayed to God and said, "Well, would you show me what you want me to do? Where should I go?"
Subhanallah.
And so then that call came. And so several days after, my friend kept calling and talking to me and said, "I need you to get a Quran." And I said, "Okay." So I ordered the Quran. And said, "Well, start reading it. It's the English version. See, where you go from there." And I started reading it, and I started having like a I started reading, first I started reading it was the verse 255 in Al-Barakah.
Yeah.
And then I went to 256, and that's the one that really got me. It's like some said, like no compulsion in religion.
Yeah.
And it started talking about taking the hands of God.
Yeah.
And if you've taken His hand and you've reverted from evil and you come to good, and you've taken the hand of Allah, you've had the most trustworthy hand. Even as I talk about it, it's given me that.
Goosebumps.
Yeah.
But you know what? We got to go on a short break.
Okay.
But I still want to get to a point. I want to hear about your coming into the fold of Islam and as things happen, and I'm sure the viewers would want to hear that.
Sure.
But I also want to get back to a point when we come back after the short break. What are those things that would really make a person not think of being a Muslim? My reason for that is because it means that those areas we probably need to develop on. Our viewers, because our program is viewed all over the world,
Sure.
Muslims all over the world would probably need to know what we are not doing that that should be attractive.
Sure.
And we should attract
Definitely.
people. What should we do that will be very attractive to people? And what are we doing that is not creating that attraction that will arouse the curiosity in people to want to know about Islam?
Correct.
Or what are Muslims doing in the world that are killing that image of Islam, that are not creating the curiosity in people to want to know about Islam?
Sure.
You see what I'm saying?
Correct.
Because it's like about a car. Maybe I didn't hear much of that car, so I never thought about buying
That's true.
a Volkswagen or a XYZ. So therefore, maybe there need to be more advertisement, something like that.
Sure.
Or probably we didn't hear about it, but if I had heard about it, it would have been my first choice. You see what I'm saying?
That's right. That's right.
And it's not that you never heard about Islam.
No.
Hearing about Islam is not a question. So therefore, it means the Muslims need to do something they're not doing that will create that curiosity into people to want to make Islam a choice.
Okay, sure.
To learn, you know.
Okay,
So I wanted to be very honest. It's not being negative, please.
Okay.
Feel free. If it's
problem.
Muslims' attitude, it's something that they're not doing that does not give people that first choice in mind to know about Islam.
Okay.
So viewers, again, you have been viewing Interfaith Views and Issues. It is a pleasure, of course, to have Sister Lynthia with us on the show today. And this is a show that has been designed towards establishing tolerance and better understanding among different faiths and cultures. So when we get back, we're going to be talking with Sister Lynthia on some of those issues that prevented her from making Islam a first choice in her search or her spiritual search in life. Thank you very much.
Subhanallah.
Tune in to Who's Who in America and in your community, hosted by Sister Naima Khan Ghani, with extraordinary guests every Sunday night at 8:30 p.m. on www.AL-HIKMATLIVE.com.
Walla ilaha illallah. Walla ilaha illallah. Wallahu akbar. Wallahu akbar.
Tune in for Friday Khutbah at 1:30 p.m. broadcasting live from Darul Uloom Institute, Pembroke Pines, Florida, on Al-Hikmat TV Online.
Jashne Ahmad Rasool. Allahi Allah.
Tune in to Young Muslim Talent in America, hosted by Salma Muhammad, with talented kids from all over America, every Saturday night at 8:30 p.m. on www.alhikmatlive.com.
Allahi Allah. Oh, Jashne Ahmad Rasool. Allahi Allah.
Thinking of doing Sadaqah Jariyah for your near and dear ones? We recommend you to sponsor the Origin of True Islam brochure, the Genealogy of Prophets, or the surahs and zikr to be recited daily as Sadaqah Jariyah for your parents who have passed away. Or you could sponsor one of the items for yourself, fi sabilillah. For more details, contact the Al-Hikmat office at 1-800-804-0267 or 954-986-0158, or email us at alhikmat@alhikmat.com.
Welcome back to Interfaith Views and Issues, a program designed towards establishing tolerance and a better understanding among different faiths and cultures. And as we said before, our guest in the studio today is Sister Lynthia. And we have a very interesting conversation with her. So stay tuned as we ask Sister Lynthia to continue on the issue that we were talking on before we went on the short break. So Sister Lynthia, I want to get back to that point that we were discussing. What or why? I mean, let's forget about being negative. I want to get that negative point out so we could correct it.
Of course.
Why and what are those things that existed that did not attract you or caused you to think that Islam would have been the last choice in your spiritual search?
Okay, well,
you know what I'm saying?
I understand, and I'll be honest about it. My experience with Islam, apart
and I don't want to cut you. My reason for that is when I was younger, I want to say younger, there were a lot of things that I personally wasn't attracted to in Islam.
Okay, sure.
Very much. You know, like the cultural things, Islam looking like an Indian religion.
I'm getting there.
Things like that. So I wanted to be very honest because that's the way we could correct it. And now I know that those things that I had a problem with had nothing to do with the Quran, with Islam, but it was to do with people.
That's
and
correct.
I always like to expound on those areas so we could probably better our image as Muslims in the world, inshallah.
Okay, I'll break it up in probably 2 or 3 parts. But the first part, that, as I said, I might not have it would have been the last religion I would have looked at. Okay. And one of the things I think it was that, unlike the Christian faith, Christians are always looking for new people, you know, to change people's lives. And they will come to you, and they'll talk to you, and they'll invite you. And it was always welcoming and warm. And despite the fact I had Muslim co-workers, it was just, we were co-workers, okay? And of course, the workplace is not a place to talk about converting
religion,
people.
Excellent.
But at the same time, I never heard any of it. And I would have also Christian friends, but they will indirectly say, oh, we're having this probably minister coming to our church. Would you like to come?
Wow.
They invite you. So you get an invitation, unlike the Muslim faith. And so that was one of the reasons I said.
So what you're saying is that the Muslim co-workers only presented themselves as a co-worker.
As a co-worker, and you knew they were Muslim, but they never talk about anything.
They didn't really present themselves as a Muslim co-worker or an Islamic personality that would have created the curiosity into you to want to know more about them and their religion and their way of life. Good point. I really love that.
Yeah, there was no invitation to anything. So that's why I said it would have been the last thing I would have thought of joining. And also my own perception. Like I said, I understand cultures, but I also had this perception, and this might be due to my lack of not reading more into it, my perception of women's treatment in Islam, and pro-female.
Right.
So that was one of the things that I think would have not interest me to go to Islam. But now I know better.
Because the image of women out there is sort of...
Right. And then actually when you actually see the Muslims, even if they're walking like maybe a group or a peer, they avoid any eye contact, which I understand what it is, but there's no greetings, there's no welcoming. And even now as a Muslim, I find I go out of my way to say to other Muslims, especially when I see them, I'm very excited to see them, and I go, Assalamu alaikum. And some of them are welcoming to it, and some are not. So,
you know, I love that point. And in all fairness, and not in defense of those people, but you know what? It's all culture. Ignorance. It's not only culture, I think it's ignorance.
Well,
some of them, yes, there are a little bit of culture in them. Some of them is like being modest and bowing and keeping their gaze down, because we're supposed to keep our gaze down.
Right.
I understand all that 9 years, but I know what you're talking about. There are ladies who do that to you. And it's because of their ignorance, and because you're right, those are some of the things that turn people away from Islam instead of attracting people to Islam.
Right. So those were some of the things, like you said. Okay, that's the first part I would say before my conversion, that the way I viewed Islam. I would honestly say, although the general public had a negative view of Islam after 9/11, I did not, profoundly did not, because I always felt that...
Also, you were not a Muslim
not
when 9/11 took place? Because it's just 2 years ago.
I was not. But I profoundly was not against Islam, because I looked at it this way with that. My second phase is after I became a Muslim, after I reverted, I was told that to stay at home and do all my readings. But as a Christian, I knew that when you become a Christian, you need to be with other members. Okay, and so I felt the same way. I did not want to be isolated. I'm not an individual who likes to be isolated. I like to be among people, and I wanted to understand the faith more, not just reading about it. Okay, intellectually it's fine, but I needed to understand the culture. I need to be part of that culture, to feel it, to see how they actually lived. Okay, and so I know I needed to find a place to pray. And one of the things I feared, because I was told this, is that I'll be considered an outsider.
Oh.
Okay, so I had all this to deal with, a new faith, a completely 360-degree turn.
Yeah, yeah. And being an educated woman in your profession.
Yes, it was a lot.
It's hard to have to digest that.
Yeah, and then it was very difficult. You have to deal with family. And so I was going through a lot of turmoil at the time, and I said, I need to find somewhere I can pray. I have some friends who are, they're Muslims, and they told me, there is a center called The Rule we went to, and they said, you like it because it's very Caribbean, and you like that. And they said we had gone there to, I think they went there to a function, and it was very warm. And they gave me the address. And
that was going to be my next question. How did you end up at Darul Uloom?
They gave me the address.
Yes,
because because
Florida.
they had visited it, and they gave me the address, and I drove there. I looked at it. Okay, I said, okay, first step.
Good. First step.
I drove back home.
Oh boy.
Okay. And I'm still contemplating, I'm still debating.
Oh, so you didn't get out the parking lot? You didn't go
I just drove.
Okay.
I stayed on Pines.
To get your geographical
Yes,
settings.
got my geographical settings. And I saw there was another church next to it. That's the first thing. And then another, I think it was a Sunday, I drove by, and this time I came into the parking lot, and then I made a U-turn, went out again.
Oh boy.
Okay, and I kept praying, and I said, oh, I gotta have the stamina to do this. I'm not going to be fearful. And I kept praying in the Quran, and I'm saying, Allah, please help me to get through this. Give me the strength. I know you want me to go the straight way. And I think one day I think I called the center, and I found out eventually it was Sister Salma I spoke to. And I asked her, I said, is any
yeah, because when you call the Darul Uloom, the call goes to Al-Hikmat office.
Right. And I asked her about for new members and stuff, and you know, if they had any meetings. And she told me about Sister Karen that Sunday. And so I decided to come in that Sunday. I had so much fear because it was very tormenting. I tell you, it was very tormenting.
And you are right, Sister Lynthia, because that's a problem, and a lot of Muslims, well, new Muslims, tell me and complain to me on that issue, that many masajid or Islamic centers or Muslim communities in different areas, you know, the actions show a lot of prejudice, shows that uncomfortability when someone goes there and they do not make things comforting for people, which is so very un-Islamic. And I love that you share that, because I want the Muslims throughout the world who are looking at this program to know that we are discouraging people from Islam rather than bringing them, only because of our ways, which is so very un-Islamic.
Well, that might be a point too, but I had looked, it is, but I looked at it in a different way. I thought maybe they had to be comfortable with me too. And if you know what I'm saying, it had to be equal. And so, sure, I might be considered an outsider. I'm trying to learn this faith, and I'm trying to learn this culture. And
but you see, from an Islamic perspective, there's nothing like an outsider, because the Quran tells us, Adam and Eve, human beings, just to be a human being, you're not an outsider of Islam. You see the point I'm getting at?
Yeah, I agree with you, but I was told I would be considered that.
I understand, and that's why I love you being on this program, because we want the viewers to know that these are all misconceptions about Islam.
Yeah, I was told. Anyway, I did finally that Sunday. I went in, and when I opened the door, I told you my hands were shaking. I was very cold. I was nervous, but I was brave. I decided to be brave, and when I touched the door, and at the same time, this beautiful woman was coming out. And I have not seen her up to now in Darul. I've always been looking for her. She had the most beautiful smile, but I remember she was wearing a peace scarf, you know, the one that says peace on it, the peace sign. And she was wearing that as her hijab, and she had the most beautiful smile. And it just gave me like a sudden peace.
Maybe it was the angel who opened the door for you to come in.
I'm still looking for her.
That's why you don't have seen her again.
I'm looking for Sister Karen Shah. And she said, oh, if you go in, you go to the left, you see her standing there talking. And I remember she was standing with you.
Wow.
I haven't seen her.
What if that was an angel?
I don't know, but I've been looking for her. But I remember being comfortable after that.
But you understand what I'm saying? You didn't want to come. You came twice. You went back. Finally, you got the courage, made an appointment, and the first thing you opened the door, and there is this beautiful person who welcomes you with a sign of peace on them, on her in fact, and you just never saw her again.
I know, I remember the scarf saying peace, and I remember when I was entering, this was another thing. I wasn't sure if I should enter from the front.
Oh.
Because they said women should enter from the back.
The back
door,
that
was another thing. But right after I saw her, I was comfortable, and then I met Sister Karen, who she sort of like pacified me more, and then we talked.
That is such a beautiful experience. That is such a good experience, and such a pleasure to hear you share those wonderful memories, which is a great lesson for our audience.
Thank you. Thank you. And that's what I wanted to be, a lesson. It was a lesson for me too. I think it should be a lesson for other reverts, and not to give up. Don't let your fear keep you back, and you know, put your trust in Allah and just proceed.
Subhanallah.
You know.
Beautiful sentiments. Yes. I love that.
Yes.
And well, you know, as usual, the clock keeps on ticking. So we're on a countdown for time. So what would you like to share in a few seconds with our audience and our viewers?
Well, I would like to share that that you know, when you have new Muslims, to welcome them, teach them about Islam, and at Darul I've had a lot of that. I had warm welcomes. Everybody has been good to me, and I would wish the same for other mosques or other centers to be the same way.
And I'd like to let you know, if anyone doesn't treat you well at Darul Uloom Institute in Florida, it has nothing to do with Darul Uloom authorities. That person is probably a visitor themselves.
No, I look at things now differently. I do not have that fear, and I think it's my background of understanding culture. I respect people for things they do. Maybe, like you said, maybe they don't, it's ignorance, but at the same time, I have to be comfortable with them, and they have to be comfortable with me. It's an equilibrium.
That's why this program is about tolerance and better understanding. Yes. Well, Sister Lynthia, it has been a great pleasure to have you with us.
Thank you.
And to share your experience and sentiments. And of course, a woman of your career and profession, working at Jackson Hospital, very world famous hospital. It is a pleasure to have you with us in the studio here at Al-Hikmat TV.
Thank you. And
we hope to have you again sometime in the near future, inshallah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, and may Allah bless you. And ladies and gentlemen, you have been viewing Interfaith Views and Issues, a program designed towards establishing tolerance and better understanding among different faiths and cultures. I'm your host, Shafayat Mohammed, wishing you all the best, and do tune in, same time, same station, next week, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.